All right, welcome back to the Ish of Arabia show. And this is the show where I talk about whatever I want with whoever I want. And my guest today is Jonathan from Roots of Orthodoxy. Actually, is from Roots of Orthodoxy is kind of weird because you are Roots of Orthodoxy. Like you're just the guy. Unless there's like a whole 10, 20 people behind the team
No, it's
who
just
are
me, but it sounds right. I'm from Roots of
yeah.
Orthodoxy. I don't call
hmm
myself Roots of Orthodoxy, but if that's what people call me, then I'll take it.
Well, I remember I was actually in Southern California with Sips with Sarah, right? Like with Adrian, and he starts messaging, and so like, yeah, Jonathan kind of keeps messaging me about this thing, and I was like, Jonathan, who's Jonathan? He's like Roots of Orthodoxy, and I was like,
That's funny.
because on your name on my phone it says Jonathan Roots of Orthodoxy. That's literally your
Yeah,
phone name. But
yeah,
yeah, man, tell us who you are, like where you from, what are you doing in life, all that stuff.
yeah. So my name is Jonathan. I run a page called Roots of Orthodoxy, and I run another page called Roots of Faith. And Lord willing, maybe another page in the next like couple months. I have something on the horizon. So I don't want to share the details on that too much just yet.
hmm
But I got my start working with Voice of Reason. So as many of you all know, Alex, Voice of Reason, he's my best friend. I've known him since we were 5 years old. We grew up together. We literally went to school together, and we've been close ever since. Um, we've been best buds ever since. And he's always had
hmm
a passion for the faith, and he always wanted to get me to be closer to Christ. And I never really cared too much about Christianity. I grew up Roman Catholic, cultural Catholic, and people think this is crazy, but for 26 years of my life, I was a cultural Roman Catholic, and I did not know that the claims of Christianity was that Christ was God. That wasn't in my mind whatsoever, and it might be just because I'm really stupid. Like, trust me, I'm not
Well,
actually blaming the church for that.
time
It's
out, time
probably
out.
because I'm really stupid.
What do
No,
you?
yeah,
Who was he? Who was he? What? Like,
no,
what do you
I
think it
just
was? Just
thought
like a
like
guy?
I just thought because I would go into the church, I would see Christ on the cross, and it didn't really register in my mind what it was that we were doing at church. And that
Okay.
might be, I don't want to blame the church for that. That was probably just my own stupidity and my own lack of like being interested in the faith. But yeah, man, just 26 years, I would go to church. I didn't care for it. And one day Alex really put me on the spot, and he got me angry. And he was really pushing me. He was trying to get me to be serious about Christianity. And one of the days he just pushed me over the edge, and I got really upset with him, and I was like, "You know what? I'm going to read the gospels, and I'm going to prove to you that Jesus is not who you say that he is, that you don't understand who he is." And and it's funny because you come from a Muslim background, I was sympathizing more with the Muslim position. I was somebody who, in my understanding, I was like, Jesus Christ is more than likely just a prophet, some type of mystic, some type of teacher, and he came to teach us about the one true God. And so I start going through the gospels, and I slowly start to open up a little bit more to the idea. But I remember taking photos with my phone, and I would send it to Alex, and I'd be like, there's no way he can be God. Look at what he's saying here. This is something a human would say. There's no way that the creator, the almighty would say these things. And so over time, he was very patient with me. He let me wrestle with the text, and it took me a while, but I was like, okay, Alex actually knows his stuff. Like, he's not just like trying to mess with me. He knows his stuff. And so I told him, I said, "Hey bro, like, my background is in social media marketing. You have such a great level of expertise when it comes to the Catholic faith. Why don't I put you on camera and we start making videos about you teaching others about the Catholic faith?" And so we did. He relented for the longest time. He did not want to do it. And one
Yeah.
day he finally conceded, and he's like, "All right, man, just tell me what to do." Sat him down on the couch, and I just gave him a list of topics, and I said, "Hey, bro, here are the topics, and you have to say it like this." So before this, just to give a timeline to this, this is
hmm
2023, March of 2023. I
This
started
is not
making
that long
videos.
ago, then.
Yeah, not that long ago. I started
Mm.
making videos in 2019. I quit my job. I was working for a museum. I was a membership coordinator at a museum here in town,
hmm
and I quit my job because I didn't feel fulfilled creatively at the job. I was at a desk most of the time, and I just felt like I was wasting my talent and my youth. And just on a moment's whim, I said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to put in my notice and I'm going to go to Los Angeles. So I'm from New Mexico. I live in New Mexico and my brother lives in California. And something inside of me told me, go to Los Angeles. So I left and I spent a week over there. And by the grace of God, this is what happened. Before I went to California, and at the time I'm like, nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows. I'm not even good with the camera. I'm an absolute beginner. I DM'd 100 people. I said, I'm going to DM 100 people and offer them to make them videos. And whoever gets back to me is who I'm going to work with. And by the grace of God, a lot of people actually said yes. And they said, yeah, come through and we'll do something. They were just, barbershops, restaurants, just businesses and people. And when I get there, all of them ghost me. All of them ghost me. So
Are
all
you
the
serious?
people
Like
that
you show up to the store and then like they just don't
No, I
come
show
out?
up to LA. I get to LA. I get to my brother's place and I'm like, I'm here. Like I start messaging them like, guys, I'm here. Let me know when to come through and I'll film this video. All of them ghost me, but by the grace of God, the ones that got back to me were people that were successful people.
Mm.
So one was a celebrity boxing trainer. Another was a celebrity barber. And when I say celebrity, I mean that a lot of their clientele are celebrities, like bona fide celebrities, like big names, really big names.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the opportunity to get in those circles and start working with some of these people. So within 1 week of quitting my job, I I quit my job. Within 1 week, I'm already doing videos with FouseyTube. Like as a beginner, getting the
Wait,
chance
stop.
to
You
work.
FouseyTube?
Yeah, I did a little bit of work with FouseyTube. I'm not gonna say that I did like a bunch of stuff with him, but within 1 week, I got to meet FouseyTube.
That's
He
just the
was
most
super
random
cool.
thing you said all day. So continue. Sorry, I'm cutting you off, but just
Yeah, no,
like that's so
it's
random.
yeah. A lot of people don't know this about me. I think this is the first time I share it publicly. Um, but yeah, I'm doing some stuff with him. This is when he was doing his boxing
Mm.
comeback or whatever, and I got to meet him. And then on the other side with the barber, he took me to do a bunch of house calls with his clients. And so that's how I got to meet like UFC fighters and boxers and singers and things like that. So it was just a really cool experience that 1 week removed from my job as a beginner. I didn't really know how to use the camera. As a
Mm-hmm.
beginner, I'm being put into a place that I didn't deserve to be in. And slowly over time, over the course of 3 years, so from 2019, actually just 2019 to 2020, I grew tremendously in my craft. And I had an eye for camera visuals and stuff like that, but I found out that my bread and butter wasn't actually the camera stuff. It was the marketing side of it. How can I get people to watch content? How can I get people to watch videos? And social media became my bread and butter. I started coaching people, telling people like, "Hey guys, if you do your video like this, it's going to get way more views than if you did it like this." And that became more of like my specialty. Um, and
Did
over
that come
time,
naturally, or did you learn that? Because
yeah,
for me, it's
it
like,
came
how do you
naturally, yeah.
find out? Like, well, like just for example, if I make a video, like I still struggle thinking, well, what I struggle with like the captions or like with what to put for the thumbnail,
Right.
let alone like what to actually say in a video.
Yeah.
So, like, does that come naturally to you, or is it more just like something you learned over time?
It's one of those things where I have, I guess, just a base level of understanding and I run with it. I'm not the best. I'm not a bona fide expert. I always tell people perfection is the impediment to progress. So the more you want
Mm,
something to be perfect, the more the less that you're actually going to do because you're wanting everything to be perfect. I'm somebody that's like, I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And the thing that sticks, I'm just going to do more of that. So I don't focus too much like on thumbnails and captions and stuff like that. I just focus on going hard and seeing results, seeing what works, and then just doubling down on that. So I actually learned a lot of like my marketing stuff from a guy named Gary Vee. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
yeah.
So I've never met him, but just listening to his videos, just watching his content on YouTube, he's the one that really inspired me to start creating content. And he's the one that inspired me to quit my job actually. So, and once I did, it was just a matter of executing. So
Mm,
once I saw that I can get results, I started duplicating that with a lot of different people. And so I already knew that I had the skill set to take Alex to the next level. And I had been wanting to get him to do a social media for his acting background. Because as many people know, he was an actor before he was Voice of Reason. And it just never happened. And I'm glad that it never happened because I think what came out of Voice of Reason was a lot more impactful and it was a lot
mm,
more fulfilling because it brought people to God. And so, yeah, fast forward, get Alex to get on social media, March of 2023, and he got me to fall in love with Christianity. And I actually fell in love with Christianity through the Eastern tradition. So he took me to his church, which was a Byzantine Catholic church. So it was through his church that I fell in love with Christianity and particularly Eastern Christianity. Once I was there, I got exposed to like what is, um, I guess you could say Eastern Orthodox tradition. So once I found out about that, I'm like, okay, why don't I just go to the Eastern Orthodox Church? I want to know more about that. And so I kind of went out of my way to meet with Eastern Orthodox priests and start visiting their churches. And I slowly fell in love with it. And come October of 2023, I start Roots of Orthodoxy, where I sat down with priests and I interviewed them, not only for my personal journey, but so that I can share it with other people. And given my social media background, I knew that I could do it and I knew that it was possible to share this with as much people as possible because I knew that there was something true, good, and beautiful in the Eastern Orthodox Church that the whole world should know about. And we have to remember, like, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Orthodoxy, but at the time, when I started in October 2023, it wasn't as popular as it is today. In fact, my first interview on Roots of Orthodoxy is titled The Original Christians You've Never Heard of. So that was the attitude at the time.
it blew up in late 2024, I think,
Yeah,
is when
100%.
people really started thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. So I get accused a lot of like trying to capitalize off the growth of Orthodoxy, but I want to remind people when I started, there was no rise of Orthodoxy. I
Yeah.
started the page at the time when a lot of people didn't even know what that was. And for those that are listening and this is their first time, listening to me, I'm a Catholic. So this has been the most like I guess controversial part of my ministry and my pages and stuff like that is that I'm a Catholic, but I run a Orthodox page in which Eastern Orthodox priests, academics, theologians, and lay people are platformed. And it's just been a blessing. It's been a great experience to be able to do that, to be able to bring people to the Orthodox Church. And every time somebody tells me that they became Orthodox because they saw a video on Roots of Orthodoxy, like I say, praise God. Like it, it's
Mhm.
it's it's a big blessing.
For me, it's interesting because I have 2 degree I have a degree in the study of religion and then a master's in theology. So, like, I've known about Orthodoxy for a while, but it's interesting to me, like, when there's this clash between Orthodoxy and Catholicism, and in my mind, and I honestly think the Orthodox are gonna hate what I'm gonna say right now, they're close enough in my mind. Like,
Mm,
they're just like, when I was discerning an apostolic church to be a part of, it was none of them were different enough for it to be a deal breaker to me. And yes,
mm,
there's dogmatic differences, and yes, for me, like their liturgical practices mattered more almost than the dogmatic differences because one thing like was Mary sinless at conception, or was she sinless at a different time, or the two natures of Christ was like the Coptic Orthodox Church. Is it two natures making one, or is it two distinct? And I'm just like this is such semantics and they matter. It matters significantly. But yeah, in my mind, when you said that people become Orthodox and you praise God, I 100% understand that. Because me, I'm a devout Latin Rite Catholic.
mhm.
But if someone converts to Orthodoxy, that's a win. They're getting the sacraments. They're getting the Eucharist. Getting their confessions. They're going to liturgy. They're praying. Like that's a beautiful
That's
thing. And I feel
exactly
like
how I see it. Exactly,
Catholics don't
100%.
appreciate that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I heard you say in your interview that you didn't really consider like Oriental Orthodoxy because it seemed like they didn't want you. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
at the beginning. And now they all do because everyone knows me. But like,
Yeah,
dude, once
yeah,
that
yeah,
interview came out, they all start like, dude, become Coptic, bro. Because
yeah,
I'm just like, yeah. At the beginning, they were so suspicious. There's like, guys, there's this 18-year-old Muslim kid who says he's not Muslim who wants to join us because he met Jesus while on a road trip, and everyone's like, they literally like on the phone are like, yeah, no, we don't, we're good. But
yeah,
then the Catholics and Protestants loved me, so I was like, okay, it's one of those two. So
yeah. I
yeah.
kinda don't blame them just because of all the persecution that they have their guard up, and
Mm.
but at the same time, I could see your perspective, like, you're trying your best to come to Jesus, and they're kind of, like, putting a wall between you and you making that decision.
So I talked to someone from that same Coptic church actually, like just this year, because after the video came out, he was like, yeah, maybe we should catch up and talk about that. And he didn't know who the person was called or anything, but he told me one of the reasons could have been because a lot of Egyptians still have families in Egypt. And if it
Mm,
gets back that they're harboring ex-Muslims, they get persecuted. Not the people here in like North America.
right.
It's the families back home. And when he said that to me, I was like, I kind of understand now. It's not like they maybe really believed me and wanted me to come to church, but they had to think about half of their family still being back in Egypt.
Yeah, Lord have mercy. But
Yeah.
that's one of the things, right, that I saw a need. So I was like, okay, here I am as a Catholic. I have this gift that God has given me to platform other people. Um, and I see that the Eastern Orthodox, because at the time there really wasn't any big Eastern Orthodox pages. And I said, I know I can help these people. I know, and to be very clear, I'm not saying that God needs me at all, and I'm not saying that the church needs me
Mhm.
at all. I'm just saying that I saw something in which I could help and be of value. So I was like, I know that there is a desire for this, but people don't even know it exists. So I know that there's a desire for something like Eastern Orthodoxy. However, people don't know that it even exists, so they don't even know it's an option. So that was my mindset. And at the time, I was heavily influenced by like Andrew Tate. I really liked watching like Sneeko and all these guys that later converted to Islam. And I
Mm.
questioned myself. I said, why would they want to become Muslim? And so much of the aspects of that faith that is attractive to young men, I found that they exist in Eastern Orthodoxy. And they not only do they exist there, but they exist there in the fullest form and expression of that. So, for example, the prostrations in prayer, the the commitment to prayer, the fasting periods. You have Ramadan, you have Great Lent,
Yeah.
you have the reverence. The Byzantine style architecture actually comes from the Eastern tradition of Christianity. You have
Mhm.
all of these parallels, but you're getting the full expression of it. The Muslims, of course, they promulgated iconoclasm, so they stripped the beauty of the churches. They stripped the images. Our faith is a faith of incarnation, so we believe in depicting our saints on the walls, our saints in icons. We believe in depicting Christ because he came in the flesh. If Christ was alive today, you'd be able to take a picture of him. And
Mhm.
that's what I would say to iconoclast Protestants and iconoclast Muslims. Um, our faith is incarnational. So you get to see the beauty in its fullest expression in the Eastern Orthodox Church because that's the continuity of our faith lived out. So I saw that and I was like, all these people that are attracted to Islam, I bet they wouldn't go over there if they just knew that they could find it in the Eastern Orthodox tradition. So that was just one of the reasons why I got inspired to create Roots of Orthodoxy.
Mhm. So why are you Catholic then?
I'm Catholic because I just started this journey. So I'm brand new. We've only been at this for like 2 years since 2023. And there's
Mhm.
so much more to learn as a brand new Catholic. I call myself brand new Catholic, even though I've been Catholic my whole life, because I've been
Well, but by
reintroduced.
faith you are really.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been reintroduced to Christianity. So as a conscious Catholic, I'm brand new. Like I'm still learning basic things to this day. I tell people all the time that I'm embarrassed by how big my platforms are and how little I know about Christianity. So I'm just enjoying every step of the process. I'm taking my time. I'm going to liturgy. I actually attend every weekend, I try my best to attend the Eastern Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. So I have my
Are
foot
you
in both
are you in
worlds.
there for 6 hours, bro? What are you? How long are you at
No,
church?
so get this, the Eastern Orthodox Church only has their liturgies on Sunday. So you can't do
Yeah.
like in the Catholic Church, you can just do like a Saturday mass. So I have to go to the Catholic Church on Saturday, and then the Sunday has to be reserved for the Eastern Orthodox Divine Liturgy. So it's not bad. It's not bad. And
Mm.
I actually really enjoy every part of it. So it's not like a chore for me. I'm
I know.
excited
I'm
every
just
time I
I'm
go.
just
Yeah.
picturing you like going from like 6 a.m. to 9, and then you're driving to another church from like
I
9
wish
to
it was on the
1.
same day. I would just do the whole thing in the same
Just
day.
stay there, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. Honestly, but even you just saying that, the fact that we are now allow, we're, like after Vatican II, I think it was, we allow for Saturday night masses to count as what's it called? Sunday masses.
Was that not
Because
the case before?
no, that was not the case.
Oh, wow.
Like for
I
the
didn't know that.
TLM, it was very strict. It was 8 a.m., 10, and 12. And if I'm wrong, like people can correct me in the comments and stuff. But from what my understanding is, that was not allowed till very recently.
Wow.
And I can understand why they're thinking that. They're like, well, let's make it easier for the folks and stuff. But when you make a religion in a general sense easier, you dilute its holiness. And I think that's something that's really happened in Western Christianity,
Fortunately
where
so. Yeah.
like even Lent, we only have two in the Latin church, we have 2 days you have to fast a year. That's
Right.
pathetic.
Yeah.
And it's not even a fast, bro. It's two small meals and one large meal. It's breakfast,
Yeah.
lunch, and dinner. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
literally
exactly. Yeah.
like meanwhile, like 500 years ago in the Latin church, you couldn't even eat eggs. Like it was the same as the Orthodox.
Yeah. I heard that
And
even
I
in
yeah.
the ancient church, that even babies were expected to fast from their
Yes.
their their mother's breast. So I was like, "That's super intense. That's very intense."
And
But
I'm a guy who's a foodie. I understand. Well, like, come on, like
me too,
it's
brother, me
40
too.
days a year. Just
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it. Like just do the thing. And I know you like you're expecting more people to come to the faith,
Right.
but actually when you start making something less and less I don't want to use the word holy, maybe even rigid, like less and less rigid. People want rigidness. They want answers. They
Yeah.
want clarity. If you just make something be like, "Oh, you can do this. It's optional. This is the limit." Just do the bare minimum,
Yeah.
then you get a bare minimum congregation.
This is why orthopraxy is so important. I think so. And the Eastern traditions have really captured this in a beautiful way. So, for example, even just the way that the Eucharist is distributed in the church, that makes a big difference. So it's not just a matter of catechesis of the laity not knowing about what the Eucharist is. It's a matter of how are you treating it within the service. Like at the Eastern Church, in the Eastern Catholic, Eastern Orthodox Church, there's all these prayers leading up to the reception of the Eucharist, and you have to examine yourself. You have to even be fasting the night before, and you have
Mhm.
to do pre-communion prayers. So there's this preparation and an understanding that's being ingrained and programmed just by the things that you're doing. So you're understanding this isn't just like anything else that I'm taking. This isn't just bread, this isn't just wine. Leading up to the preparation of the Eucharist, you have these prayers where you say, "Now set aside all worldly cares." So you're understanding that you're entering into something divine. You're
Yes.
about to partake of the mystical supper. And in my church, in the Eastern Catholic Church, when the deacon has the chalice and he's actually going to give it to somebody who's handicapped in the back of the church that can't go and approach the chalice, everybody bows before it as it's coming down. They bow before it. And just that action alone sets the tone that, okay, this isn't just regular bread and wine. This isn't just some make believe chalice this is actually the presence of our Lord. This is the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And we're treating it as such.
Mhm.
Um, in the, unfortunately, in the Roman Rite, there have been a lot of abuses, and the everyday lived experience of the Catholic Church is not as, it's simply not as reverent. I took my brother to a Eastern Orthodox church service for the first time, and it
Mhm.
was the most beautiful and transcendent and divine experience. and you really felt like you're in the presence of the heavenly Jerusalem. And then later that day, I had to fulfill my Catholic obligation, so I went to some run of the mill Novus Ordo, and some little kid was giving me the communion. So I'm like,
It's quite
what I
different.
experienced in the morning was something so transcendent and transformative, and now I'm here at the Catholic Church, and it's the complete opposite. The priest is
Mhm.
cracking jokes. There's a flutes playing, like they have flutes and they have like all these instruments and all this noise, and I'm like, and then some little kid is giving me the Eucharist, and it's not the same. It really isn't. And I wish, my desire is to see a return to a more reverent liturgy. I think a lot of people would appreciate that.
You know what I think too, and I know a lot of people are not gonna like this either. I don't think the TLM does it either, compared to the Eastern churches. I really don't think the Latin Mass compares. Like, obviously, they're equal in
I
dogma
100%
and
agree with you.
everything, but
Yeah.
I when I'm at a Latin Mass, it still doesn't hit me the way I could be at a Latin Mass and go into the car and play Orthodox chants and feel holier with the Orthodox chants
Mm,
because there's something about like the mystery of the faith, like the way the Orthodox have kept the mystery of God is so
100%.
beautiful. Where in the West, we've really tried to like what's the word? Dogmatize everything and really pinpoint like so when does the bread actually become the body? And
Right.
what does it mean? Transubstantiation. Like we had to really go hardcore on every small detail. And
Yeah.
what the East is saying is it's faith.
Right.
That's what it is. It's a mystery.
Exactly.
And the word actually for the sacraments is asrar in Arabic, which really means the secrets or the hidden things, because
Mm,
they're hidden from human understanding. You're not supposed to understand. Like, how does water make you holy or make you not have sin? How does bread become the body of Christ? How does a priest saying you're forgiven actually make you forgiven? It's asrar. It's a secret from heaven that like you're not supposed to unlock. And here we try to make them we call them sacraments because we try to analyze it like, well, this is it shows something holy, and that's why it's sacramental. And I think psychologically that's a big difference. That I don't think the solution is just go back to the TLM. I think the solution is really let's look at the other apostolic churches. What are they doing right, and how can we get a better liturgy in the liturgy we have today? Like, I'm not saying everyone should just throw out Latin masses and stuff. I'm saying let's make it even holier and more reverent
yeah.
rather than just
That's
rigor.
actually a really good insight, and, in the early church, and it's still in the prayers, where before you receive the Eucharist, we say, "I will not reveal thy mysteries to thine enemies." Speaking
Mm.
of the Eucharist, so secret, I think, is an appropriate term for sure.
Well, in the early church, like when the Eucharist was about to happen, the people who were not baptized had to leave.
Yeah, they say catechumens depart.
You ever hear the part where they're like, the doors, and then they close the doors in
Yeah.
the Orthodox Church? I love that.
You know
And
what's funny? It's funny is, growing up in the Catholic Church, at the church that I was getting my catechesis at when I was younger, when I was a kid, they actually still did that, and they were like, the catechumens, they have to leave and go get some, spiritual formation in
mhm.
another building. But in my church, we would just go, and they would let us play soccer. So we would just play soccer in the courtyard.
A
So
for effort, I guess they still had
yeah,
in the end. They tried their
yeah. So
best. But no, it's true though. I feel like those small things, like we gotta bring them back. Even that alone, like making a separation where if you're not baptized, don't maybe people who are not baptized have to leave a certain area, like they have to wait outside during the liturgy of the Eucharist. Maybe we shouldn't have a short liturgy for the Eucharist. Maybe we should make that liturgy 45 minutes long. And yeah, it's gonna suck and you have to stand the whole time, but at least you know when you're receiving at that point that it means business.
yeah,
Like, no one looks into a church and sees like a priest holding up quote unquote a piece of bread and everyone just standing there for 45 minutes and is like, this is a normal occasion.
right, right, right.
Right
Yeah,
away, even if you don't even know God exists, you know, okay, they're taking this bread thing seriously. There's something interesting going on here, and we're missing that from the Western world completely.
I love that. I love that. And you know, it's not just the Eastern Orthodox tradition, it's also like the Oriental Orthodox, and that's one of the reasons why I started my other page, Roots of Faith, is that I wanted to extend my conversation, and because this is all a process for me. This is a journey,
Mhm.
and I want to enjoy, not only enjoy every step of the way, but learn and truly seek out truth in wherever it may be. So I started interviewing Orthodox people, Oriental Orthodox priests and lay people, and that has been very, very rewarding, even just in a personal way. Like there there's a holiness to the Oriental Orthodox Church that not a lot of people know about. And by the
Yes.
grace of God, I've been able to work with them and meet with them. And I don't know if you know Abuna Lazarus, but just getting
Mhm.
to know him has been just such a big blessing for my life and for Alex's life as well. Um, and Roots of Faith also is an extended conversation. It's a podcast, so I talk to anybody. Unfortunately, I haven't really put too much time into it, but definitely Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, and even some Protestants. I'm gonna start opening those doors for those conversations on there as well.
That's awesome, man. Are you worried that you will become Orthodox and that it's gonna be like, "Oh, psych," like, everyone's gonna be like, "This guy wasn't even Catholic," or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are gonna freak out and then or no, you don't really care.
No, I don't. I'm not worried about the response. I actually think I would get more approval if I became Orthodox. I don't really have a big Catholic audience. I don't think so. I don't think I have a big Catholic audience.
Really?
So yeah, the Catholic audience is definitely Alex's audience, but that audience doesn't really correlate to my audience. My audience is, I would say, primarily Eastern Orthodox, Protestants, and Oriental Orthodox, and some Catholics. But I actually don't get heat from Catholics. I don't really engage with them. I don't speak to them too much. That's gonna change because I'm gonna start incorporating them into my channel as well. But um, yeah, I don't think that people would give me a hard time if I became Eastern Orthodox. I think if I remain Catholic, I would get a lot of heat. I would get like, I think this is what I predict. People would be like, see, he was faking it the whole time. He was just
Mm,
trying to make money, just trying to do the Orthodox thing. And now that he's done with it, this was his plan all along. Like that, I think that's more the expectation if that were to happen.
interesting. I always think for myself that if I left Catholicism, man, I'm screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's like 80% of the people. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
they're gonna freak out. Like, the reason why I went viral is literally because becoming Catholic.
Right.
And I thought, I don't think I'll ever not be Catholic because I've already came to the conclusion that the close enough thing, right? But
Right.
I do think my practices in life might become more and more Eastern. I do see that happening where I might go to an Eastern liturgy, I might take up Eastern prayers and all that. But for me to go and be a catechumen again and go get some places you have to go get if I became Coptic, I have to go get baptized again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like
It depends. It
I
depends
I
where you
it
go.
depends on the
Yeah.
church, yeah. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't wanna do this all again. Like,
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a terrible answer, but I just
That actually does worry me a little bit, is that controversy of rebaptism. I'm like, what is that implication? So if I were to get rebaptized, obviously in their perspective, they're saying you're not getting rebaptized. This is your first baptism because
you
you're
were never
being baptized
baptized, yeah.
into the Orthodox Church. But I'm like, okay, what is the implication that, if I accept those terms? Then that means that I was never baptized. I never had the grace of God I never had sacramental grace, and perhaps the Eucharist that I was partaking in wasn't a true Eucharistic meal. And I'm a godfather to people, so I'm not actually ontologically their godparent. um there's a lot of implications with that, and I do kind of wrestle with that, and I do think it is somewhat problematic, and it certainly was problematic for Metropolitan Callisto Square, who had hoped that the Council of Crete would be able to solve this issue. And unfortunately, that wasn't a very successful council, and
Mm,
it was never something that got settled. So to this day, this is one of those things where It's something that's applied through economia, this concept in Orthodoxy where there's a loosening of the canons and in the reception of how somebody is received into the church. Like a bishop might use their discretion to receive some person through chrismation, another person through baptism, but they take like a tailored approach to every person. In some ways, this has its benefits, it has its pros and cons. It's not like the
Mhm.
Catholic Church where everything has a uniform standard. In some ways, I guess some people could admire the Eastern Orthodox approach, but it is a little bit controversial for sure.
I think it's controversial because there's no standard, but I also there is a claim that that makes it closer to like the early church.
Mhm.
And at first, I thought that was a ridiculous claim, and now I'm just like, maybe that's true. Maybe the early church was not as organized as I thought it was.
Right.
Because what do you do? Like, if hypothetically, if we're in an early church and someone goes and gets baptized as a Gnostic, and then now wants to become fullness of the faith, and you're in an area where the bishop's like, yeah, we got to rebaptize him. But
Right.
if they get rebaptized, it could spread controversy in the town. I think another bishop, if it was in that town, could say, "Well, we're just going to chrismate him." Like I can see that happening. Actually, the more I think about it, because of human error, and I think
Yeah.
God works in human error.
Well, the
But I
Eastern
also
Orthodox,
understand the other argument for that too.
yeah, they hold to there was a council that was authoritative in the East called the Council of Trullo, and this was in the 7th century, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And in this council, it has parameters for how to receive converts from various backgrounds. So it talks about how to receive converts that come from certain Gnostic backgrounds, certain heretical backgrounds. And it wasn't what a lot of Eastern Orthodox are claiming today, that there should be a blanket standard that everybody should be baptized. Doesn't matter if you're Catholic, doesn't matter if you're
Mm,
Oriental Orthodox, Protestant, there is no baptism outside of the Orthodox Church, therefore, it's a blanket standard that everyone must be baptized. This certainly wasn't the case in the early church, and if anybody is curious, they can look up, I believe it's in the 90s, so canon, I'm gonna butcher it. I think it's like canon 92, canon 93 of the Council of Trullo, and it sets the standard for how to receive people from different backgrounds. So if it wasn't good enough for them in the early church to just blanket baptize everybody. They had ways. In fact, this is going to be scandalous to some people. It even says certain heretics can be received through a confession of faith. They don't have to get baptized and they don't have to get chrismated.
is
These
that
people that
scandalous? That doesn't make sense to me.
it would be scandalous to the modern Eastern Orthodox ear that that they wouldn't be able to conceive that that would be a possibility because of this notion that everyone must become blanket baptized. But the early church
Hmm.
certainly did not believe that, and there's a precedence for that, and there's evidence for it. They can just look it up.
Well, in my mind, because like we have like in the Catholic Church, we have baptism by desire, and our main thing is like, if you're baptized, water baptized, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, you're good. We're not going to rebaptize you and all that stuff. So I think I think those are good rules. I'm actually very happy the Catholic Church didn't say like, oh, we're going to rebaptize everyone, because I
Right.
think that actually makes it messier than
Yeah.
doing it the other way. I just think that was actually something that really made me not want to be Orthodox. Was while I like it in practice, that like yes, it makes sense for each bishop to kind of have a loosening sometimes, but it in theory, I would like to know if it's Christ's church, and if it's Christ's church,
Right.
shouldn't there be more direct, like contraception or divorce? Divorce is actually the biggest one. Not even contraception for me. Divorce is a big one for me
Right. That's
because
pretty. I haven't done enough research on the divorce and remarriage to know why they do that. Um, I've been told that it's a holdover of the Byzantine civil code of the early church, that they're just following the applications of the civil authorities that they had wanted to. enforce divorce and remarriage and be able to do that. And it's just a holdover from that. I don't know how true that is. I would have to look it up, but it does seem scandalous because it almost seems like they're not upholding the sacrament as high as they should be.
Yeah, it's like there's these six sacraments, and the seventh one's a little bit lower. Like it can break, it can, like it's not
Yeah,
as strong. And I'm just like, I don't know if it's a sacrament, then it should be for life.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing with contraception. You're gonna hear mixed things. You're gonna hear priests that have understanding where it can be a pastoral guidance to use it. There could be a pastoral approbation, but it would be under economia. So it's not an ideal scenario, but there is an accommodation in certain situations. And then you're gonna have people that have the opinion that it shouldn't be used at all, and it's a sin against God.
see now the Catholics are gonna go after me now because if they said, for example, any contraception that doesn't induce an abortion, that makes way more sense to me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where the Orthodox are coming from. This is not me promoting contraception, by the way. I'm saying using it as like an argument from their perspective. However, if they're like, oh, contraception it can be used regardless if it does an abortion or not, that's where I get really iffy. I'm just like,
Yeah.
well, we know that one's a major sin. Like, how can we just like allow it to go in that gray area? But if they're
Yeah,
like, oh, well,
and for
these type of
most
contraceptions you can.
yeah, and for Orthodox, the one that would be completely out of the question is abortifacient contraception. So what you're saying is if
Yeah,
they're using contraception that impacts the baby, then
but
that
if
would
it can
be
lead to it that way, then yeah, that's
yeah.
not good.
But
Obviously,
you're saying that you would be like, you're okay with using contraception to control, like, how many kids you have?
that's not what I said.
Okay, okay, okay,
No,
never mind.
no.
No,
Back
I'm
up.
not yeah, yeah, go ahead.
As soon as you asked, I was like, bro, they're gonna cut this. They're gonna put it. No, I don't think contraception is good.
Okay.
However, I do think under economia, like I'm trying to see it from their perspective.
Okay,
They
okay.
can be like, for the benefit of that spouse, they could use, for this specific circumstance, they can use contraceptives that don't induce the killing of the child.
Mhm.
I can see it from their perspective.
Oh, okay, okay. But
Yeah,
you personally would be like, that's not, acceptable," I
I
guess.
would just say be abstinent.
Yeah. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, when you think about the term, right,
yeah.
you think about the root word, of contraception, contra meaning against conception, and then you have to get into, like, moral theology. Is this going against the will of God? Am I doing something that is inherently sinful? You see in Genesis the sin of Onan, who spilled his seed, and that was displeasing in the sight of the Lord. And
I just don't think that's a good argument, though.
that's one of the things that they bring up, and obviously, many church fathers read that as he was just being disobedient. They didn't make the
Yeah.
connection between the spilling the seed but that is one of, like, the scriptural proof texts from the Catholic side. I'm not too, like, well versed on it. I'm not an apologist, but, that is one of the things I've heard.
hmm I guess for me, I'm trying to make the argument that not all contraceptions are as equal, and how bad they are. I don't think we can make a blanket statement saying like this one that doesn't do anything but make a barrier is as equal to like the unaliving of a child. I don't think they're equal. That's why I'm saying like I understand the loosening of rules for some spouses with the one that doesn't do the latter.
Yeah, I had heard that the ancient church actually was always against it, because artificial contraception is a newer concept, right? Because that's something that's
Yes.
come about within the past, 100 years or so. But barrier methods have always been there, you know, since the
Yes.
beginning, or, the pull-out method, whatever, what have you. And church fathers have talked against these methods. So there is a precedent of being against it, in the early church. And I actually did an interview on this, and their argument is that this is the teaching of the Orthodox Church, and this is the actual tradition of the Eastern Orthodox Church to uphold that contraception it should be forbidden.
hmm But I find that the Catholic Church is the only one that really is hardcore on contraception.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, the most almost every I can't think of another church that's like as hardcore on contraception.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think NFP is contraception? This is a controversial comment or question, but I I find that there's okay. I'll give you my opinion, and then you can tell me if you agree or not. Okay. I think, and I'm being dead serious about this. If someone is going to promote NFP as a way to prevent having children, then that is as equal to using a condom
Right.
because at
I
that
think the
point you're
intent
using it as a contraception.
Yeah, I think the intent, if that is the intent, then I think it's wrong. It is my understanding, and I could be wrong, that NFP is not to prevent, but you always have to be open to the possibility, right? But it's
Yes.
never I guess it's never like a bona fide prevention. Like
Hmm.
you always have to be open to the possibility that that could happen if you want to engage in the marital act. And I think all this comes down to is because you can sin by lusting after your wife. And I think that's the intent
Yes.
with a lot of people that use contraception. Let's be real. They're using it because they want to engage in something for their self pleasure, in which they view their spouse as an object of their pleasure. Now, that's not the case all the time when people are engaging in the marital act, but in many cases, that is what's happening. They want to
Hmm.
engage in something that's self satisfying, in which they're viewing their spouse as an object, but they don't want the consequences of what that would of childbearing. So
Hmm.
I think intent plays a role. If people are doing NFP because they're seeking self satisfaction and viewing their wife as an object, I think that could be problematic.
I That's kind of my argument is that if NFP is being used in a sense just to not have children, that is the main reason. And like if which I think in a sense is selfish. That you're like, I want to make like a 99.9% chance that we're not gonna have children. Well, I'm just like, that sounds equal to me.
Yeah,
That's better than the barrier method. So you're bragging to me about this contraceptive method, and you're like, "Oh, I don't even have to use barrier. I just have to pick this one day a month." And I'm like, "This is really weird. This You're literally
yeah,
using barrier without the barrier. Like the barrier's time. That's what you're using." So yeah.
yeah. I have a
So
book.
yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry. I didn't think I was going to talk about contraception with you.
Me neither, but now that you brought it up, I did an interview on this one right here. This is contraception in the Orthodox Church. Let's see if it focuses. Sorry, right there.
There we go.
Contraception in the
Yeah.
Orthodox Church. It's also available on Audible. It's like a 2-hour listen. It's written by Dr. T. Pino, and this is the standard, from what I understand, for how how the Eastern Orthodox Church views contraception. So you know, this is it right here.
Nice. Okay. It's only 2 hours, not that long. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a short read.
Is your wife and family on board with all this Christian stuff too, or is it just kind of you
Yeah, yeah, my
balloons?
wife is actually she was actually more, of a devout Catholic than I was, and it was her I was actually like the negative, influence. I was a negative influence because when we got married, she wanted to go to church, and I was like, Why go to church? I don't care about church." Every time we would go, I would stand outside. Like, I would use the kid our I would use, our daughter as an excuse to go outside. And if she was fussy, I would just
That's
go
crazy.
outside and I would just stay out there like until mass was over. So I didn't care about the faith, but she's always been, wanting to be close to the Lord. She knows that going to church is the right thing to do. And like
Mhm.
many Mexicans, that's just what you do. That's part of our culture, that's part of our heritage to be close to God. And she's a devout Catholic. Her involvement in my journey, it's kind of just like, she just lets me do my thing. We go to church on Saturday at the Catholic church, and then I go by myself to the Eastern Orthodox church. I don't force it on them. I don't try to,
Yeah.
but my kids love it. My kids love it, but I don't want to force taking them every time, and especially if they're already going with me on Saturday. So we just do the Saturday as a family, and then Sunday I just go by myself.
Nice. That's good stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah.
So I'm trying to picture. I want to ask a question, but it might be too much. If you did become Orthodox, how's that gonna just
That see,
gonna
that's
give?
actually a big concern is that that would just like split our family apart. So that is something I would have to take into consideration. It's like, okay, what are we going to do now? Like now I can't go with you to the church, because I can't be seen at the Catholic church, or I can't be there. Like that would probably go against like the canons of the Orthodox church. So that would be pretty difficult. But I care about the truth first and foremost, right? And many
Mm,
people make this sacrifice. Think about all the Protestants that become Catholic. They have to make this same sacrifice. They have a Protestant wife, they have a great community at their church, their parents are Protestant, and they have to go out of their way to say, sorry, guys, I love Christ so much that I found that this is the church that he wants me to be united to. And I'm going to put that above everything else, above my marriage, above my relationships. And I'm sure you can relate because that's essentially what you had to do, right? When you became a Catholic and you had to leave the faith that you grew up in, right?
that's true, but I guess for me, like, I think these questions are too unknowable. So, like, with Islam and Christianity, they're different enough that like they can't both be like the true.
Right,
Like
right.
Jesus can't be a man only or a man and God. There's no This impossible. But when it comes to like Orthodoxy or the Eastern churches versus the Latin church, the issue with me is that like will I really know in this life these differences? Because they're more nuanced. Like
Mm,
to the extent it's like like what type of bread should we use in the liturgy?
mm,
Like some of them are so specific that I'm like, that doesn't seem like it should matter that much. There are things that even like the filioque. I believe in the filioque. I think it's correct. However, but then I hear that like Catholics try to argue like, well, we can phrase it in a way that's like from the Father through the Son in order to
right.
bring communion together. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, then just phrase it that way, and then hopefully the Orthodox are happy and we call it a day. We could get this back together. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't, they're too similar. And I know both sides are going to disagree with me, but they're not different enough for me to make the leap. I've
Right.
not been convinced enough that that the differences are salvific. I know that sounds like a big deal, but I don't think it's salvific if I chose Coptic, Assyrian, or
Yeah.
Catholic. I
I definitely
don't.
understand where you're coming from because, I think about that sometimes, and I almost wish that the claims were more radically different so that I can examine them a lot easier with
Mhm.
more clarity. Like, I wish they were a lot different. I wish that they were diametrically opposed to each other, but
'Cause you can pick a
90%
side.
of
Yeah,
our
you
faith
can yeah.
90% of our faith we share in common with each other. So it's obviously the outlier here is the papacy. The papacy is would be the fundamental difference between, Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, and the other churches,
That's
and the
true.
other apostolic churches. It's the only thing that's the outlier, the major outlier amongst the apostolic traditions. Um, and yeah, I
The
kind of
papacy
wish
was
that.
never an argument for me, which is interesting.
Well, you know what I think is appealing about Eastern Orthodoxy is the narrative behind it. So the narrative that its view of church history is very attractive. That it was the apostles and their successors and the bishops and the patriarchs, and everyone had equal authority until the tyrant stepped out of line and started to throw his weight around, and essentially we get to what we now have as papal supremacy, in which he has universal and immediate jurisdiction over all the other patriarchs. And not only that, but he has a infallible charism. I like the narrative that there was this evil, you know, bishop that stepped out of line and he
Mhm.
betrayed the brothers. And that's the narrative of Eastern Orthodoxy, is that it was the band of brothers, and then, the evil brothers stayed out of line. It's like a movie. It's like Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's like the Fire Nation attacked, and that's the one that stepped out of line, and they need to come back in communion. So I see it. That's very attractive to me because I'm very like I love an underdog story. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I love an underdog story. So
But
I'm like, okay, I want to hear out their claims, and then you have to take into consideration 4 out of 5 patriarchs are saying that Rome departed from the true faith. So if it's 4 out of 5, what is the likelihood that they're right and Rome is wrong? You know, the likelihood is higher because you have, just going off of numbers, you're like, okay, all 4 of them agree that Rome deviated from the faith by its innovations, right?
mhm,
What is the likelihood that Rome is actually the true defender of orthodoxy? Lowercase orthodoxy, right? Lowercase o orthodoxy. Um, it's just something to consider. Like it makes you think. Like um, and another thing too is that because the criteria for what makes the Catholic Church true is very specific, I guess if somebody really wanted to disprove it, all they would have to disprove is one doctrine, right? You can pick anything that was infallibly dogmatized, like purgatory or the Immaculate Conception. And if you
mhm.
grab any of these dogmas and disprove them, then you've disproven the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church cannot dogmatize something that isn't true.
That's not true.
Therefore,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of where I'm starting to go. I'm starting to investigate more of like Purgatory and the Immaculate Conception. I have all these books on my desk right now about Mary, just trying to get both sides and see, and just see what's true and what's not true.
See, for me, it always made sense that there be a head of the bishops, because even in the New Testament, Peter is just the head, like just like the
Yeah,
way he's talked about and everything.
right.
I know that's not the question. The question is not that is Peter the head. It's like,
Yeah, because Eastern
well,
Orthodox
how
affirm
much?
that. Yeah,
Yeah, how much of a head is he? Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
exactly.
what does that mean? And the phrase "first among equals" is like me saying I'm your boss slash coworker. Like, it
Yeah.
just doesn't
It
mean
almost
anything
doesn't
to
make
me.
sense because it's more like an honorary title, but it actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but why
Um,
have a title if it's just honorary? Like, God's gonna make this title and then have no power behind it?
well, as I understand it, it's not only honorary, but the first among equals does have special prerogatives, and that prerogative is to be what they call to have appellate jurisdiction, meaning they're the last court of appeal, and so they do have a precedence over the other uh, bishops, the other patriarchs, and the Eastern Orthodox Church recognizes that. So the if there's a dispute between Alexandria and Antioch, they
Rome
can
decides.
appeal
Yeah.
to Rome to be the final court of appeal, and that's what they argue, that that's what we're seeing in the early church. Whenever we see that Rome is overstepping their boundaries to intervene in the affairs of another jurisdiction, that's what we're seeing, is that we're seeing that Rome can have these prerogatives, but it has to be in concert with the rest of the patriarchs. And that's why in the early
Mhm.
church, St. Peter was actually referred to as the Coryphaeus. I might be butchering that word, but Coryphaeus meaning the leader of the choir. So it
Mm.
there's a way to harmonize their understanding. So it's not as, at face value,
But
it
then
does sound,
but then
yeah, this
couldn't
doesn't make sense.
couldn't the Supreme Court say that, like, Rome is right then about being papally infallible?
Could the Supreme Court say that?
Like, if Rome is the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has decided that Rome is infallible
Well,
on a moral, like, that to me, like, that contradicts itself. Rome has
that's how you get like the
spoken, like,
circular. That's how you get that circular argumentation, right? It's infallible because it's deemed itself as infallible, right? And
well,
yeah,
so who checks Rome then?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know what I mean? It's just like
I'm gonna
okay, it
put my
just
hands up
doesn't.
and I'll put my
Both of
hands
them
up
are
in the
just
air.
like not. Yeah, exactly. Both of them are like. It just seems like an unanswerable question to me. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
Rome. They're even the Orthodox. Like, okay, Rome is the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, like in the judicial system, like if two patriarchs are fighting, we go to Rome.
right.
Okay, we're fighting with Rome. Who do we go with? We go to Rome, and Rome decides Rome's true.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, so then what do we do? We get like a third party. We go to the Protestants and be like, hey, what do you think of like, you
yeah,
know what I mean? So it's just that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems unsolvable. That's why I'm like at peace with this apostolic, like, ecumenical thing where I'm just like, I just don't think that's an answerable question. And I
yeah.
think
Well, I think
it,
being a Catholic means that you can have your cake and eat it too. So if you
Mhm.
admire the practices of the East, you can remain in communion with Rome and simply go to an Eastern Rite church. You know,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
it, it has everything. It has everything, which is very appealing. That's very appealing. That clarity, having that
Doesn't make
understanding
it
that
true though.
exactly. So it's like we have to make sure we're keeping our eye on the ball and pursuing what is true versus what is the most convenient. Because in my opinion, I think the papal model is the most superior. I think it makes sense. I think it
Mm.
maintains unity far better than um the other models. And that there's some debate about that, but I do think that it holds a superior model, but it's not a matter of is it a superior model, it's a matter of is this true, and is this the model of the first millennium? That's really what it
Mm.
comes down to.
Yeah. The one thing that makes me question Rome. There's two things that make me question Rome. I forgot the second one, but the first one is the dogma of the Assumption of Mary is the one that makes me question Rome the most.
That makes you question Rome?
The most.
Why?
Because that has the least historical evidence
Mm,
of any, because like the other ones are philosophical. Transubstantiation, you can't really disprove that. Our purgatory, everyone kind of does believe in purgatory, and if they won't admit it, they're just like, you're out there with the Orthodox, they're praying for the dead, and you're like, well, why are they praying? Well, they're going to heaven. Well, if there's something in between, then yeah, they're being, like, they'll even use the word they're being purified or being sanctified. I know there's like differences between the temporal punishment, and
I've
I'm
heard them
kind
even
of,
even use the word purge. I don't think they have a problem with purgatory.
that's why I'm just like, bro,
I've
like,
heard
it's
I've
cement,
heard them
yeah,
I've heard some say that they just have an issue with purgatorial fire. The idea of a
which is not
purgatorial
the
fire.
dogma.
Right.
But that's not the dogma. Yeah, like, so in my mind, I'm just like, if you're gonna argue against it, at least have the dogma right. I even do this with Islam. When people are make arguments against Islam, I'm like, at least get it right. Like, she wasn't 9, she was 6. You know, at least I'm you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
At least
yeah,
at
yeah.
least get the argument correct. And
Is
it's
that
just like,
hold on, is that in the Quran or is that a hadith?
it's a hadith. So the
Okay.
hadith says they got married. She was 9, and they consummated at they married at 6 and consummated at 9.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
are they like sola scriptura people where it's like, well, if it's not in the Quran, then I don't have to uphold it as
Only
high.
like 1% of Muslims are Quranist only Muslims. The
Okay.
vast majority believe in the Hadith. They have
They
to,
value the
because
hadiths.
if they, it's it's like having the Quran can't stand by itself. It really can't. Like, you can kind of make an argument for the Bible because the Bible has like a beginning, middle, end. The Quran doesn't have a beginning, middle, end. It's just stories. So it needs the Hadith to tell you, hey, this is what the story means, why it
Right.
came down, what the revelation. You know what I mean? It needs that concrete thing. So I don't understand how Quranic Muslims exist, but they do. So, but yeah. But about what's it
I think you
called?
cut out, brother.
No, we're good. You're still talking.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Yeah. You cut out there for a little
this,
bit.
it's all good. I got the editor will do the whole
Okay,
nine
cool.
yards. But so the Assumption of Mary, because of his historical evidence, and oh, the second one was the fruit of Catholicism. And I'm not talking about the people at all. As someone who's lived in the Middle East, I would say half of the Coptics are like the Catholics in the US. They don't really know what's going on. They're kind of just, they go to liturgy like once a year because their parents took them. But when I talk about the fruit of Catholicism, that makes me really question it, is the liturgy, like we're talking about, the way uh, dogmas have been formed, the way things have been just uprooted, like from the Council of Trent to Vatican II. Like, just in 500 years, things have changed so much,
Mhm.
and that makes me question:
Yeah.
is this the right apostolic church? Because it seems like the other ones were at least all going the same way, and this one just kind of gives a little bit. It's a little bit like, it's like a boat that hit a lot of hard waters. It's still
Yeah.
floating, but it makes you suspicious about the captain sometimes. It's like,
Yeah,
why do you
I've had
keep
the
why
same
do you
the
keep
same
hitting this?
thoughts.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
because you take a look at like you're like if this is really the true church, then examine it by its fruits. Like look at all the abuses that are happening. Look at all of the not only like liturgical abuses, but even like scandals and controversies. And look what's made of this faith. Like where I know there's an exaggeration that there's like 70% of Catholics don't believe that Christ is truly present in the bread and wine. I know that's an exaggeration, and that's not like that's going off of like some skewed survey, but
Hmm.
the number is probably high. I'm not gonna lie, because I was one of those people. I was 100% one of those people, and yeah, I think that
I'm surprised it's not higher than 70, man. Like
really.
when you go to some parishes in the middle of nowhere, they don't know what's going on.
I bet you could just
They don't,
ask somebody at the parish and be like, "Do you know what we're doing?" And they're just like, I bet you could
dude.
ask them and they wouldn't know.
They're like, it's the communal meal because, like, because like the Last Supper, they all ate, so we're all eating together. I
Yeah.
guarantee you're gonna get an answer like that. They have no idea what's happening, and I'm just like, okay, we translated from Latin to the vernacular, so you're hearing it in English. You're hearing "take, eat. This is my body. This is my blood," but you're still not understanding it. So it's not that's the issue. There's something deeper going on, and I'm not
Well, they
sure
could be
what it is.
misunderstanding, like, even the words of consecration, like, in the Roman Rite, he does say, like, "Do this in memory of me." People that listening in the audience, they might be like, "Okay, we're doing this in commemoration or as a way of honoring Christ," but they're not clicking that this is actually the body and blood of our Lord that is made manifest in the gifts, in the bread and the wine. And I don't think it's just a matter of catechesis. Like I would go back to like orthopraxy, not separating the
That's what I
theology
mean. Yeah.
from the way that things are happening liturgically and even like the interior spiritual life of the parish. I think when you separate those things, you do run into some problems.
Hmm. One thing that I really disliked when they changed the Latin rite to the Novus Ordo, as they took away a phrase before communion, and the phrase was from 1 Corinthians 11, and it said, "If you eat or drink this unworthily, you make it sick or die." When they were reforming the liturgy, you can look this up. They took that phrase out before communion,
Mm.
and I don't know what the thought process was. But if anything, we should have added that 5 times. Like, we should have put that all over the Eucharist. I'm like,
I Is that still
yeah,
present in the traditional Latin mass? Like if I were to go to one?
yes, it should be. So when you go to traditional Latin mass, it's in the Latin, but when you go to the English
Okay.
translation, it should still be there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that I think that's important. And I think like in the Eastern tradition, even in the Eastern Catholic Church, it depends on the parish, but like one of the things you do in the Eastern Rite is that you're expected to fast from water and food leading up to you partaking of the sacrament.
Yes.
So right away that disqualifies a lot of us. But I know that's just a practice, but that practice leads to an understanding of what I am doing is actually it's not ordinary. It's
Mhm.
extraordinary. It supersedes all rational, the cares of the world. This is something sacred that we're taking part of. This is the
Yes.
mystical supper. It really just even the practice of doing the fasting before that, it transcends like your understanding.
I would say too that, we used to have that. So, like, I obviously my parents didn't grow up Catholic, but my friends' parents, when they were growing up, they had to fast for 2 to 3 hours before mass. Then it was 1 hour before mass, and then it was 1 hour before receiving the Eucharist. That's what it is now.
Yeah.
So, which me and mass is
Another
already an hour
45
long.
minutes before the Eucharist.
Yeah, so basically, you can be eating a snack in your car and then be like, "Oh, mass starts in 10 minutes," and you stop eating.
Yeah. Or
And
like
then you
chewing
just
gum.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. I don't think gum counts. Technically, like, gum apparently, so that's maybe that's not true, but I've heard that gum doesn't count, and that's not including water either, it's just food. And I'm just like, "What are we doing? Like, what are you like, you can't stop eating for, like, 2 hours?" Like, I know we have an obesity issue, but come on, like, it cannot be
Part
this
of me tries
bad.
to think of like also, but part of me, I try not to be so hard on the Catholic Church because we have to understand it's the biggest Christian tradition in the world. So, for example, I hear a lot from like Eastern Orthodox. If they were coming from a Catholic background, one of the things they'll criticize is how different confession was for them. So they'll say, when I was a Roman Catholic and I went to confession, it wasn't very pastoral. I didn't really receive the medicine that I needed. I would go to confession and it was just like, okay, you're forgiven, say 10 Hail Marys and you're on your way. And it was very transactional.
Mm-hmm.
That's their experience, right? And now when they go to the Eastern Orthodox Church, because the churches are a lot smaller, you have more of that intimate relationship with your spiritual father, and you're able to get that tailored medicine just for you. Um, but I want to be fair to the Catholic Church because we have to remember how big the Catholic Church is. So at my local church here, the Roman Rite Church, it was one weekend. I was like, okay, I'm gonna wake up early so I can go line up for confession on Saturday. The confession line starts at 8 in the morning. So I was like, okay, I'll get there a little bit before, like 7:50, and I should be good to go. The moment I got there, there was a line almost all the way to the back of the church
Yeah.
for confession at 7:50 before it starts, before the confession starts at 8. And I was like, okay, well, I'm here now. I waited 45 minutes in that line. And when I got to the front, there was one more person in front of me, and I see the priest walk out of the confessional. And he turns to the guy in front of me and he's like, tell everybody no more. And so he turns around and he's like, no more, the priest is done. And then there's still a big long line behind me. So the reason I bring this up is I'm like, the priest, unfortunately, he's like a doctor in the Catholic
Mm-hmm.
Church. The doctor only comes and sees you for like 2 minutes. When you
Yeah.
go to the doctor's office, he's kind of like that in the Catholic Church. He doesn't really have the time and the resources to sit down with every single person and give them that real therapeutic type of like um you know aspect of confession where they really get to talk to you, hey, like it in the Eastern right, at least in my church, when I go to confession, it's like a conversation. They sit down with me, they ask me what's going on, what led to you doing this, how's everything, and it's very intimate and it's very spiritual, and I actually really appreciate it. But then again, I can't be so hard on the Catholics for the Roman Rite Catholics for how they do confession because they're swamped. Like
Mm-hmm.
they do not have enough priests to do confession already. So it's kind of hard, and it's kind of like, so confession is one thing, but also the communal aspect of Eastern Orthodoxy is actually very strong. So you go to an Eastern Orthodox Divine Liturgy. After the Divine Liturgy, there's what's called coffee hour. So people will stay at the church. It might be connected to the church. There might be a building or it might be a separate building. People go there and they spend, maybe an hour and a half in another room, eating together, sharing a meal, having some
Mm-hmm.
coffee, building real community. And I hear Eastern Orthodox criticize that about the Catholic Church, saying I never experienced that in the Catholic Church. But it's just not practical in the Catholic Church because of the size and the population of the Catholic audience. People have to, and I don't mean audience in the sense that it's like a performance, but like the people, they have to leave the parking lot because there's another mass, and then the parking
Yeah.
lot has to get full of hundreds of more cars. So it's just not a practical thing. It can't happen.
Dude, my
You good?
lights just went. Oh no, the cat probably unplugged the light. I
No,
was like,
that's
what is
that's just
happening?
God saying that I shouldn't be yapping.
That's crazy. But I have one question. Yeah, it's definitely the cat playing with him.
Yeah, yeah, for
But I
sure.
have I have one question. Hypothetical here. I had a gun and I was pointing it at your family, and you had to pick between Orthodox or Catholic. What are you doing?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, regardless, I
Wait,
don't know why
wait,
me. I'm putting
they're
it.
gonna live?
I don't. I didn't think about this that much. Regardless, you're living. You just have to just tell me, bro. If
Okay.
you don't tell me
Um,
by the end of this podcast, someone's dying.
I would pick Catholic.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, the
Congratulations, you
scenario
picked
was
the right
crazy
one.
though, but yeah.
I don't know. Someone had to ask you eventually.
Yeah, that scenario was out of pocket, but no, it works. It works.
It works, man. No, I'd
Yeah.
pick Catholic too. Actually, no. Depending on whatever the person wants, I'd pick. Just not Protestant.
I would love to
No
be
offense to
Orthodox, man.
Protestant.
I really love it. I would love to do it, but I'm not decided yet. I'm not.
Yeah, of course not. No, 100%. But yeah, man. What's your plans now? Now that wrapping up here, like, what are you doing? 2026 is coming up. Actually, it's gonna be released probably the first week or two of 2026. So,
Okay.
what's your plan? Like, for the rest of the year? You're just gonna keep doing this? What's your off ramp for this? Like you're gonna do this till you're 50?
Well, my off ramp is, and I've always told people, if I decide to stay Catholic, I would give the Roots of Orthodoxy page away, no strings attached, to a trusted Orthodox source that understand media and they understand how to keep it going. Um, that's one option. Another option is I would simply leave the page as is and just leave it there. All of the work that I did, just leave it up there and just let it stand there for people to continue to be edified and enriched by the content. Um, but as of right now, I enjoy it. I enjoy making the content, doing Roots of Orthodoxy. In the new year, I'm gonna start going really, really hard on my Roots of Faith podcast, and I'm starting a personal page as well called Toward the Chalice. So by the time this airs, that'll probably already exist. So it doesn't exist right now, but I'm gonna start a page called Toward the Chalice. If that name changes, I'll let you know so you can edit this or whatever. But that's the plan right now. A personal page where I share many different things. I'm not entirely um, set on what's going to be on there, but it is going to be
It's just like your
more.
life, or is it
It
more
is going to be more
personal?
about myself, like where I come out in it more. So, and it'll be a
Mhm,
personal page, like on Instagram. I'll be able to share like what I'm actually doing, you know, on my story, like what I'm eating for breakfast and, what church I'm at and, just more personal stuff. But
mhm.
yeah, that's the plan and just continue to go hard and work with my good friend, Voice of Reason, work with Alex. And yeah, man. And yeah, just continue to go hard.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate
Of
it,
course,
and
man. Thank
we're
you. Thanks
gonna
for
meet in
having me.
person, in February, so I'm so
Yeah,
hyped
I'm
for that,
excited.
and,
Heck yeah, brother.
yeah, just keep the faith, whichever one you pick, and, glory to Jesus Christ always.
Always. God bless you, brother.
Alright. God bless.